Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Startup Central right here on ET Now. I'm Avan Dubash. Today, we have a very special guest with us, someone who's a pioneer in the venture capital space in India, one of the early investors in the likes of Dream11 as well as Myntra. And this is none other than Vani Kola, the managing director of Kalaaricapital. They've come out with their recent report on India Alpha, the Techade of Opportunity. So we will be talking about the outlook for AI, technology, how India's startup space is only blossoming, and what the future holds, as well as promising areas of investment. Vani, thank you so much for taking time out and joining in. Let's begin with the report. The Techade belongs to India, and given the fact that we have a lot of factors working in favor, the demographic framework, the geopolitical trust, entrepreneurs as well have been building world-class solutions. Tell us about the kind of opportunity that you're seeing when it comes to global growth and innovation, and what the report basically states.
I think we are at a perfect storm moment. I think India has built incredible assets from digital infrastructure, public infrastructure, which really allows for the kind of mass adoption that I don't think we have witnessed as quickly as it has happened anywhere else in the world. It actually creates a local economic impetus, which enables us to continue to leverage technology to accelerate growth, innovation in almost every sector. I also think globally, with the advent of AI and ability to have tools to collaborate remotely, India's opportunity to build for global. Of course, we have done that always from services, and we have also done that from soft power of culture and other aspects, spirituality, other aspects from India. But building actual innovation, technology innovation from India, I think there are many factors that contributes to it. Just the technological product development prowess that over the last 2 decades that has accelerated in the country, but also the rapid shift of business models that allows you to operate from pockets of excellence, but offer it to the world, really makes India to global for the first time truly viable and also an exciting growth opportunity.
That is so interesting, and AI is also driving the birth of several interesting companies, and you've spoken about how the Techade is right now only in its first innings of the golden test match, and there's more to go. So what do you foresee for AI from here on?
There are so many things we can do. I think creating, like I said, incubated pockets of excellence, I think is important, whether that's in the higher educational institutions to create learning excellence in gaming, AI, robotics, deep tech, space economy. Some of these are going to be the next impact drivers in terms of sunrise sectors, and they will have a broad impact from everything, how we live, how we function our day-to-day lives, how we spend our time, so forth, whether from from as simple as home automation to how we perhaps commute to perhaps how we spend our leisure time over the next decade to 2 decades will be revolutionary, and how we intentionally participate in it in not only creating centers of excellence, but also how we create funding, how we create empowerment. I think this is a moment to seize. And I already see many positive signs that propels us forward, right? It's a good time to be an entrepreneur. It's a good time to be an investor, which of course Kalaaricapital has been over the last decade of the startup ecosystem development in India. But the Techade, I think, is an interesting generational opportunity where technology that is empowering rapidly at a mass level and adoption like we have never seen before, which incredibly is a golden opportunity and the alpha opportunity as I think about it.
And where is it that you're seeing the startup sector at the current juncture? There are quite a few, concerns when it comes to the startup funding, things having slowed down. But, the report alludes to the fact that the contribution of Indian startups to GDP will be $100 billion by 2030. What's making you guys so optimistic?
These things like funding winter and slowdown, or sort of like a waves of a ocean. They are just there, and I don't think it is foundational or systemic as a deep recession or things that there is a market correction that's always there, and I think those are not things, to me at least, that are serious factors. Okay, funding will follow innovation. Funding will follow economic growth. Okay, that principle is always immutable, and we have to remember that and not worry about like the superficial waves of some market corrections that will happen. Anyway, my business is thinking 10 years long and being patient. So maybe it's perhaps that uh, I don't think about quarterly up or down in funding as seriously. But in terms of what is ahead, I firmly believe money follows innovation, and we are seeing a founder quality. We were yesterday at the Thai Global Summit in Bangalore, and I was on the jury evaluating these new ideas, and just the quality of founders, the breadth of innovation on what they're targeting, whether it's space, whether it is healthcare, whether it is innovation at a hardware level, whether it is just productivity tools. I saw someone just using technology to create better protein. In just at every level, the kind of founder aspiration and innovation. It's kind of like a rise, a massive rise of entrepreneurial spirit that I think we have willingly embraced enthusiastically as a nation. And that really empowers me, inspires me. Just as a dipstick of yesterday, but as a broader canvas, and we are seeing these innovation centers, not just in our major metros, but across India. And so this notion of Bharat entrepreneurship really excites me, because you can't have just one pocket of development, and we need to have, as I already referred to, centers of innovation in hundreds of places that, are hotbed of aspiration. So I see a massive rise in entrepreneurship and embracing of technology. And I see that is as a momentum broader than the 4, 5 metros that have largely received significant funding so far. So it's up to investors, and it's not an easy answer, but how do we reach these founders that are not in our concentric circle? We have to solve for it. But I definitely see, that aspiration across the board, and hundreds of entrepreneurs innovating with very little to reach their, market validation.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. And given the fact that the report also talks about how India is innovating faster than other nations, you've called it the geofication of mobile data, given that our mobile phones are like our 11th finger. How are you seeing Indians really leveraging this advent of mobile data and the boom of mobile data, should I say, using it for, like you say, roti, kapda, makan?
Yeah, I mean, as a digitally literate nation, which of course came from the geofication, the lowest cost for data, the proliferation of smartphones with over 1 billion smartphones. And so, pretty much access is there, and affordability of digital access is largely there. And that now puts power in the hands of the consumer versus the distribution chain or the intermediary, it hopefully takes out the fat from the supply chain and makes innovation and consumer direct relationship, so you can innovate faster and the consumer can get direct benefit of that without having the affordability gap, which usually isn't always about the cost of innovation. It is the access to that innovation which was that gap largely, right? And I think that's a very foundational structural problem we have solved. We collectively can be proud of it, excited by it. So what it for the first time allows is for you to drive value to the consumer at a directly, and also the level of personalization you can do, the personalization cost, whether it is in medicine or whether it is in one-to-one education. It was always around access, right? And the cost of access. And I think we have really solved for that. So entrepreneurs should innovate to personalize deeply. I think we'll see an era of providing for the consumer at the cost they can afford, what they want, and what is relevant to them now, right? So this on demand and personalized will be underlying expectation of every product, every service.
Right, and I'm curious to understand your take on where women as well stand in the entire ecosystem. We have, of course, made major strides, but there's still a very long way to go. Can you tell us a little bit more about how much is allocated to startups with women founders and how important it is to have a female CEO?
We are having this conversation. I think that awareness and pause for a moment to say, wow, why is this and how do we change it? When we talk about it, change already starts, right? And that's the reason for us to publish the report, not because we have any solutions. And I don't think any one person can either offer a comprehensive solution nor solve the problem individually, but collectively, collaboratively, yes. So I think the reason for the report is just to raise that awareness. And $16 is going where there is at least one female founder. But if you think of the female as a CEO, then it's like $4 going for every $100 that's going into funding. And there's a lot every fund can do. There's a lot the government can do, from the sovereign wealth fund and so on and so forth, in how they call out this focus on investment, right? As well as we can do a lot in providing systemic education for women to aspire to be entrepreneurs, not at a, in fact, I think women are very entrepreneurial. My mother running her household was very entrepreneurial. She couldn't have done that otherwise as a middle class housewife, but there was, and my entrepreneurial genes probably came from that DNA, but it's about how do you scale it? How do you aspire to scale it? And role modeling that and making that in aspiration possible. Those are things, these conversations and the CXXO Summit conclave we have yesterday, they're all the steps that we can all collectively do to look next decade for this to be a far more equitable leveling field we have created, not only because it's a good thing to do, of course it is, but it is foundational to the economic imperative and aspirations actually India has. If half of your population is not productive, how is that going to add to the economic aspirations that we have?
Absolutely. So still lots more ground to cover. And let's understand from you the areas and the sectors that you believe look promising. Where is it that you at Kalaaricapital are investing?
We were just looking at a company today aspiring to build a defense company, something we have never seen before or never really even evaluated before. And we are learning about these new opportunities with rise in technology. We have in the last year invested in a couple of robotics companies. A decade ago, that wasn't reality really. And a couple of Spacetech companies that we have invested in. A lot in the consumer, because I think the India consumer story will continue to grow. India to the world, especially through SaaS, I think is will see that massively continue to grow. It's already actually quite significant, but I think it will triple in its opportunity size. Every 3-4 years, I see that massive growth happening, as well as pockets of deep tech hardware, which we have never done before. A little bit of in India for India is important, and something that we are already seeing in electronics, semiconductors, and almost in every area there is a domestic production and domestic innovation that I think is a massive change in attitude.
And yes, of course, we have seen increased digitization and all of this really improve access. Where do you see, the regulatory headwinds as well playing a role?
Progress is always slow, but when you kind of get to the top of the mountain and look back, you can see the distance you've covered. When you're walking, regulation is like that one step ahead of another step. It's not something you run as a sprint. It's not possible in a democratic nation somewhere. Regulation just happens overnight. From the time I started my venture capital firm 15, 16 years ago to today, we have come very far. But the pace of innovation we want to create in the country, I think we have to have ways in which we systematically look at the hurdles and work on them at a pace that can keep up with the aspiration of Indian founders to innovate, right? Whether that's, and it took us really to create peer-to-peer payment and look at the massive, digitization in payments that has happened. But I was at the beginning of it. It took us a decade to create that, right? And the first companies we tried to fund in payments didn't actually work because the regulation didn't exist for it. So whether it is how we do drones, whether it is how we do these innovative approaches from technology to how you solve traffic, commute, transportation, the massive problems, even higher education, how we solve for all of these are not just private enterprise. Private enterprise can work under a benign regulation, right? So whether it's digital currency, these are massive innovation accelerators. But for those, we need the right regulatory frameworks. And I would hope and would commit to invest the time in working with the bodies and associations that can improve our regulation for innovation.
And I'm curious to understand your take as well on some of the listed companies recently. There's been a lot of focus on new age tech in the year gone by. What do you make of valuations? What do you make of profitability being a key metric that a lot of companies earlier ignored, but now are taking credence to?
I don't know why there's an ocean profitability was not important before. It was always there. I think some companies have just discovered that that's an important metric. You can't run a long-term business. The foundation of a business is profitability. This is immutable. It's like a law of physics. And obviously, if you're going to be a public company, there's a higher responsibility to capital as it should be. And when you are a private company under a innovation gap where
how the city of Coimbatore compares to other cities in the state.
The good thing about Coimbatore historically is that the center of the city did not burst in its seams.
So we launched a project in L&T bypass called Coimbatore G Square City. So whoever has invested 1.5 years back, probably they got their money doubled. That is the kind of returns they had. And Coimbatore specifically, if you look at customer preference also, they prefer a plotted villas or individual houses other than the apartments actually.
One important thing what most of the Coimbatore entrepreneurs or industries have taken into their hands is skilling of people.